Module 4 Asuka period 552 to 646 AD. I, Dr. Rita Pratap, former head of the Department Drawing and Painting, University of Rajasthan, Jaipur. I am going to speak on the Japanese history of art. Asuka period. The introduction of Buddhism exerted a profound and far-reaching effect upon all aspects of Japanese life. Buddhism arrived in Japan from Korea after centuries of development in China. Buddhist missionaries from Korean government of Pakche may have reached Japan before the end of 5th century, but for the first recorded contact occurred in 538 AD, when the ruler of Pakche sent to Emperor Kimi a gift of number of volumes of sutras, Buddhist scriptures, a gilt bronze image of Shaka Buddha banners, several temple and umbrellas. Shinto-ji temple is the earliest Buddhist temple in Japan. In 1610, a painter from the Korean kingdom of Koguryo introduced into Japan the techniques of preparing painting materials. Prince Shotoku was an ardent Buddhist scholar, ordered the first compilation of the history of Japan. The prince, at the age of 30, built his palace at Ikaruga, overlooking the Yamato River. Next to it, in 607, he built a Buddhist temple called Wakaku Sadera, dedicating it to his father, Emperor Yomi. Soga no Umako built another temple, the Hokoji, the most important relic of Asuka style painting is the Tamamushi shrine. The meditating Buddha, Maitreyi, the Yumi Dono canon are important sculptures of Asuka period. When Shotoku died, a pair of paradise tapestries, Tenjukoku Mandal, was ordered. The most important relic of Asuka style painting is the Tamamushi shrine. In the interior of the Golden Hall of Horyuji, Nara, is the Shaka triad. The introduction of Buddhism exerted a profound and far-reaching effect upon all aspects of Japanese life. With the coming of Buddhism, Japan was introduced to a concept of systems, routines, and regulations. Buddhism arrived in Japan from Korea after centuries of development in China. Buddhist missionaries from Korean kingdom of Pakche may have reached Japan before the end of the 5th century, but the first recorded contact occurred in 538 when the ruler of Pakche sent Emperor Kimi a gift of number of volumes of sutras, that is Buddhist scriptures, a gilt bronze image of Shaka Buddha banners, several temple and umbrellas. At first, there was much local opposition to the new religion, and a pagoda set up in 585 was torn down by the anti-foreign faction. But in 588, a group of monks and architects with one painter arrived from Korea, and very shortly afterwards, in what is today Osaka, the Shinto-ji temple was erected. This is the earliest Buddhist temple in Japan. In 610, a painter from the Korean kingdom, Koguryo, introduced into Japan the techniques of preparing painting materials. The emperor, who had no wish to offend native spirits, was grateful but cautious. He allowed the powerful Soga family to practice the new religion before all others. In fact, many members of the immigrant community in Japan had practiced Buddhism for years prior to 552. The Korean scholar Wani is recorded to have introduced Chinese writing to Japan in 405. Other immigrants in charge of various hereditary guilds specializing in painting, weaving, settler, had settled in the Yamato area during the reign of Emperor Yuraku from 457 to 479. Prince Shotaku, he reigned from 573 to 621, and during his time, Buddhism rose to high heights. The Asuka period is particularly notable for the life and activities of Prince Yumado, better known by his Buddhist name Shotoku, sagely and virtuous, an avid scholar and learned statesman whose cultural activities substantially advanced Japanese civilization at this time. Born into a court which had been receiving Buddhist images from Korea for 21 years and which was coming to terms with the new faith, Shotoku grew up in an atmosphere of cultural ferment. An example of his portrait or likeness depicts Shotoku as the Bodhisattva Jizo, the protector of children. Jizo always carries a rod with 6 jingling rings. The sound warned all the animals and insects of his approach so that they would scurry to safety. Jizo did not want to treat accidentally or any living creature. Shotoku had a great Buddhist temple built in Nara. He studied art so that he could supervise the building of the temple. He brought Buddhist scholars, priests, artists, and craftsmen to Japan from Korea. Prince Shotoku was an ardent Buddhist scholar. At court, he learned and wrote commentaries on the Vimalkirti Sutra, the Shoman Gaon, the Lotus Sutra. In 1607, he dispatched a scholar to Sui, China, to study Buddhism and ordered the first compilation of the history of Japan, which is now lost. In 604, he had decreed the famous 17 articles aiming at social harmony in an attempt to centralize power and to unify the various clan chiefs whose rivalries had hitherto dominated Japanese life. The prince, at the age of 30, built his palace at Ikaruga, overlooking the Yamato River. Next to it, in 607, he built a Buddhist temple called Wakaku Sadera, dedicating it to his father, Emperor Yomi. Saka no Umako built another temple, the Kokaiji, in 596. Both this and the Wakaku Sadera were laid out in imitation of contemporary Pakeche style, with the southern gate close to the inner gate and the Sutra repository, belfry and lecture hall to the north outside the compound. By 614, over half a century since the presentation of the first Buddhist statue to Japan, there were 46 temples maintained by 816 monks and 569 nuns. After Shotoku's death, the Soga clan sought to replace his influence with their own, arrested his son, and killed or forced his family to suicide. In 643, they burned down the Ikaruga palace, and 670 burned the Waku Sadera temple itself. However, Shotoku's legacy and primacy of learning and of moral values had been so firmly implanted among the aristocracy and the clergy that the ruined temple was soon rebuilt. The new compound, now called Horyuji, lay to the northwest of the Wakaku Sadera site. The layout of the main original continental model, a rectilinear walled compound whose three basic structures, the Chumon or inner gate, the pagoda and the main golden hall, were all aligned on a south-north axis facing south, involved the worshipper in a progression from one holy building to another in a straight line. The rebuilt compound, however, had its long side on the east-west axis, and the Chumon, the southern end, slightly to the west. The pagoda was now to the west and Golden Hall to the east. Both were equidistant from the Chumon and simultaneously visible to the worshipper as he entered. Instead of proceeding into the depths of the compound through a succession of buildings, the pilgrims now made a lateral turn. Asuka paintings and sculptures. Very little evidence of Asuka painting is left due to widespread destruction, but some surviving works in lacquer and in embroidery hint at the thriving coexistence of styles imported from a variety of sources. Only two relics of Buddhist paintings have been preserved from this first phase in Japan. When Shotoku Tashi died, a pair of paradise tapestries, Tenju Koku Mandal, was ordered in 622 to be hand-sewn by court ladies. One of them is the tapestry depicting the paradise of Miraku, Maitre, as a pious deed to secure rest for the soul, Shotoku Taishi. The names of the men who designed it are recorded. All were immigrants to Japan, probably Koreans. Today, only fragments of it remain. Even so, it shows how closely the pictorial art of the period was modeled on that of China. Besides that, figures are shown in contemporary Kogu-ryo dress. It is highly probable that the prince and his court wore Kogu-ryo style robes in life. An 8th century burial mound recently excavated in 1972 at Takamasu revealed murals of figures in Kogu-ryo styles. The paintings here are well preserved and the theme is developed around 4 groups of men and women attendants. 4 to a group, the men at the south end, the women at the north. Between them are placed the azure dragon and the white tiger, a sun and moon above each respectively. The ceiling had 72 small gold circle marks of consultations, some connected by parallel lines. On the Tamamushi shrine, for example, the lacquered wood is painted over with an oil-based paint in 4 colors. The actual style of the Tamamushi oil painting, however, also transmitted through Korea, distinctly recalls northern and western V prototypes from China. The most important relic of Asuka style painting is the Tamamushi shrine, so called because its panels are bordered with gilt bronze strips of open work laid over the iridescent wing covers of a beetle known as the jewel insect, Tamamushi. The shrine, in the form of miniature temple set on a high base, was probably made between 650 and 675 AD. The door panels are painted with figures of celestial guardians, the side door with bodhisattvas. On the back is a stylized painting of the vulture peak. The four panels of the base show the holy Mount Meru worshipping before a relic of the Buddha, and the two stories from the Jatakas, that is, Legend of the Starving Tigress. This is a detail of a Jataka scene. Decoration of the base, painting on lacquered wood, mid 17th century, Horyuji Nara. This narrative painting had achieved unparalleled heights in later Japanese art. It is a tale depicting one of Buddha's previous lives. The story is, as Prince Mahasattva hunts in the mountains with his two brothers, he comes upon a starving tigress and her 7 cubs. The brothers flee, but Mahasattva offers his own flesh for nourishment. The panel tells the story in 3 sequential scenes. On the cliff, the prince doffs his robe. He plunges down the chasm. He is then shown at the bottom being devoured by the grateful tigress. These paintings are executed in clear fluent line in yellow, red and green lacquer on black ground. The technique is close to Western oil painting. The style, which may be called Sino-Korean, has a decorative flatness and lyrical charm that must have appealed strongly to the contemporary Japanese taste. Portrait of Prince Shotoku and 2 young boys, probably his sons. This painting is in the Imperial Household Agency, Tokyo, dated 684. The painting executed on paper is included in the gift to the Imperial Household in 1876 from Horyuji. Painted in light pastel color, the central figure overbearing in size. The costumes are broadly shaded in strong folds and flared at the ankle to reveal under trousers. The toes of the shoes are finely pointed. All hands are covered. Prince Shotoku wears a long robe and has looped his hair according to the required style, but his trousers hang loose. The figure on the right has only a cover, as there is no sword. The figure on the left has an odd tassel, its end resembling a sword sheath. Lots of sculptures have been found of Asuka period, among which the mediating bodhisattva Maitreya is carved from a hollowed block of red pine, a tree which grows abundantly in Korea. Japanese wooden sculptures are made either from camphor or Japanese cypress tree. Its style and details are related to the famous gilt bronze meditating bodhisattva in Seoul's Palace Museum. The eyebrows arch out and up. The eyes are narrow slits with straight upper lid and the lower curved. The nose is narrow and distinctly rigid. The groove beneath it flares as it reaches the lips, which bifurcate to left and right. The chin is less prominent than those in the Torii style, and the face more rounded. The body inclines gently forward and the base torso tapers inward below the breast. Another exquisite meditating Buddha is made up of camphor wood. It shares the characteristics of Horyuji figure. The several sculpture affinities amongst the 3 pieces are the spherical modeling of the eyeballs, the articulation and inclination of the torsos, and the proportion of arms and legs. In 603, Pakeche presented a gilt-seated mediating bodhisattva to Prince Shotoku. Prince charged a nobleman to worship it, and the nobleman built Hachikoka Den, Koryuji, to house it. Another craftsman who, like Tori, was of Chinese descent and who worked in the Kogu-ryo derived Anglo style in Koryuji was Aya no Yamaguchi no Okuchi Atahi. Among other works, he produced the four celestial guardians or heavenly kings, Shiti Mio, for the Golden Hall sometime before the Takya reform of 646, which ended the Soga clan's power and patronage. The four kings show an advance in volumetric and three-dimensional sculptures. They are more rounded and the faces are fuller and more expressive. The Yumi Dono Canon, a wood sculpture in the Tori style, preserved in the Yumi Dono of the Horyuji Nara, known also as the Guze Canon, Savior of the world. This tall camphor wooden standing statue of early 7th century of Go's Canon was made for Prince Shotoku before his death. The figure wears an imposing and intricately worked gold crown. As there are numerous Buddhist deities and heavenly beings that appear in many different manifestations and attributes, a great variety of statuary has been created to depict them. A rather simple but convenient classification would include the following: 5 types of Buddha: Shaka, Denchi, Nyorai, Miraku, an example of a seated Maitre, is a detailed old Silla, Korea 7th century AD, glint bros and courtesy of the Cultural Service Korean Embassy, Tokyo. Amida and Yakushi, each of whom wears the simple robes of a priest with one arm and part of the torso uncovered. A number of bodhisattvas, Japanese bosatsu, who even after having accumulated enough merit to become Buddhas and achieve eternal bliss, choose to stay and help the souls of unfortunates on earth. Few such examples are Bodhisattva Suiko period, dated to 552-645 and at present in the collection of Freer Gallery of Art, USA. This very early Japanese Buddhist figure is carved from one single block of wood which has been lacquered and at one time covered with gold leaf. Another example is of a Jisho Botatsu belonging to Kamakura period, dated to late 13th century. It is made up of wood with gold leaf decoration. At present, it is in the collection of Freer Gallery of Art, USA. This Bodhisattva was popular in Japan as the savior of these souls condemned to purgatory of hell and as a patron saint of women and children. He carries a jewel in his left hand to light the way when venturing into region of darkness. These small images are seen at roadsides where children have died in road accidents. Groups of Mayo divinities with ferocious expressions whose duty was to thwart evil. Examples of the type are Kongo Yasha, belonging to Kamakura period, wood, gesso and colors, and at present in the collection of Freer Gallery of Art, USA. This is one of the god Mayo or 5 radiant kings. Kongo Yasha is shown with 3 heads with a hairstyle like wild flames and 6 arms holding various ritual objects. Another example is of a guardian figure belonging to Kamakura period dated to 13th century. It is also made up of wood and it is in the collection of Freer Gallery of Art, USA. This oversized figure was made as one of a pair that would have been installed at the entrance of a Buddhist temple. They were adopted into Buddhist Parthenon from ancient Hindu deities for the purpose of imitating visitors to behave with proper decorum when entering a temple. This piece was originally covered with painted gesso, which has worn away to reveal the skilling carving beneath. This includes various heavenly beings, divinities mainly recruited from Hinduism, who serve as guardians. Separate from this pantheon, but still important in the religious sculptural tradition, are the images of Shinto deities and noted earthly priests. Shinto deities are usually simple figures shown wearing the dress of imperial court of Japan rather than the Indian or Chinese priestly costume seen on Buddhist images. Shinto means the way of gods, and its origin go back into prehistoric times long before the arrival of Buddhism. The Shinto gods and spirits can be associated with natural objects that inspire a certain reverence, such as an unusually ancient tree or a strange shaped rock, or with human figures connected to the imperial family who are descendants on earth of the goddesses. Shinto sculptures are almost all carved from a single block of wood and leave pure simple lines and expressionless faces, not having all of the complex manifestations that are seen in images of the Buddhist pantheon. These figures all resemble court figures, and as deities they are difficult to identify. One Shinto figure that is more recognizable is that of a Hachiman, the deified figure of the Emperor Ojin, dated to 201 to 312, who is actually shown bareheaded and looking a little like the Bodhisattva Venizo, but wearing courtly instead of priestly robes. An example of the type is Shinto deity dated to 9th century, made up of single wood block and at present in the collection of the Honolulu Academy of Arts, USA. The figure depicts deity most likely like Hachiman, wearing the robe of a priest. Originally, the statue had a coating of gesso, but with time, this has worn off to reveal the grain of the cypress wood. Another example is of a Shinto deity in court costume dated to 12th-13th century, made up of wood and in the collection of the Honolulu Academy of Arts. The otherworldly appearance of this deity is emphasized by the thoughtful expression and the raised hands touching his hand. Another Shinto deity belonging to Muromachi period dated to 15th-16th century, made up of wood, is in a private collection. This simply carved deity is seen wearing priestly attire and was most likely originally housed in a country shrine. After the Daikya Reformation, however, gentler styles superseded the Torii style. Among the 48 statues, there are many with childlike proportions, large heads, hands and feet and small bodies. The faces have highly arched, rounded eyebrows set high above heavy-lidded, narrow, slitted eyes. The nose are shorter than those of the Tory school, and the mouths are set lower, giving smaller, rounded, and fleshy chins. This childlike style seems to have influenced many larger figures during the second half of the 7th century, the Hakaku period from 645 to 710. In the interior of the Golden Hall of the Horyuji Nara, towards left is the Shaka triad, dated 623, a work by Tora Bushi. This Tory work derived their legal stiffness from 6th century Koguryo bronze statues. They are conceived frontally in terms of planes and tubes and have typical facial characteristics. The Buddha's eye slant upward. The nose is long flared at the bottom. The mouth is set close under the nose, which makes the chin appear large. The deep trough beneath the nose cuts into the upper lip, forming the nose Tory hallmark. Twin points rising at prominent angle. The lips in simple angled planes are pulled back in the arcade smile, and the dimple beneath the lower lip is deeply etched. The neck is smaller cylinder beneath that of the head. The shoulders are set foursquare. The body is conceived as front-facing. The muscles lack articulation beneath the drapery. The characteristics link the Tory style by way of Kogyo-ryo reinterpretation to earlier Chinese V sources. In the foreground to the right is Ji Kokoten, one of the 4 heavenly kings.